Welcome to the pilot episode of Conversations with Industry Experts. I'm really excited to be interviewing Camille. We're going to be talking more about her journey and her advice to those that are looking into getting into the insights industry. Please like and subscribe so I know this information is relevant, and please put a comment in so I understand if this is helpful to you, what additional questions you would have for future guests, and please let me know if there's a certain role that you'd be interested in learning more about. First thing I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on is what is your current role, and if you could kind of describe like your day-to-day function.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for having me, Nikki. So my name is Camille Whiting. I am currently a partner at TLDR Insights. We are a boutique research agency based out of Seattle, Washington, and we're a small team. We're really 7 to be exact, and we're a team of senior level strategists. We really love to get our hands dirty into the research, and our main mission is to always take our research and insights and boil down to the most critical things our clients need to know to make an impact in their organization and really give them the TLDR, if you will. So while our team practices both quantitative and qualitative methods, I focus primarily in qualitative research. So I enjoy my days as a moderator. I love getting to know the needs and the lives of different, consumers and professionals alike. So any day I'm plugged into various parts of the qualitative research process, and it really depends on where my projects are in that process and where we're at in the schedule. So, sometimes I might be early on working on proposals, like thinking about our clients' new research questions and how I might design a research study to answer those questions. Or, maybe further along, we're, narrowing in on a screening criteria to figure out who we really want to speak to, and working on the discussion guide to figure out which questions and are most important and how we'll ask them in a way that professionals and consumers can sort of reveal their preference instead of just relying on stated preference alone. And I would say some of my favorite days are really the ones when I'm in the field talking to participants. My favorite days are in-person focus groups when I'm on the ground and in the room with real people. They can be exhausting days and long days, but certainly some of the best ones when you get to see the insights and those aha moments with people in the room.
When you have the research days, what is kind of I would say like your process? Like, is it wake up, do research, or can you share a little bit more about like how you prepare for those research days?
Yeah, of course. I think one of the great things about being a moderator and leading those conversations is it really forces you to be so present. It's so often in our daily lives we can be multitasking and answering pings while trying to get something else done. But on those research days, and especially the ones in person, you really have to take the time to focus at what's the task here at hand. You've invested and your clients have invested a lot of money to be in that room. And so my process getting ready for those focus groups, primarily I take the few hours before the groups and really kind of unplug from everything else going on, other projects, and just really try to sit with my discussion guide, sit with those research questions, and just sort of review with that intent of like what do I really want to walk away with today, and then put the discussion guide aside, because I think sometimes when you are going through the details up and up and up until the minute the discussion starts, it can actually, have a negative effect where you're like, oh, do I have it already? You do so much prep before these days that you just also have to sort of trust yourself that you've got all the skills and tools in your toolbox to be ready to lead the discussion. Other prep is, having a good meal, having the right amount of coffee and water to make sure you're truly ready to just be in the room and focus. That's also always important because you tend to have many back-to-back conversations and want to be fueled mentally and physically as well to be in the room.
Yeah, I know there's stories, and I'm just like thinking in my head of times where I've been like forcing food onto like my moderator partner of like, here's some food, like in between groups, like please eat, because like back-to-back research days, especially if you're in person, it's kind of crazy. But also in the home where if you're doing it online, it can get
Yeah,
really crazy.
yeah.
I'm sure. So I know everyone's journey is a little bit different. So do you mind sharing a little bit about how you got to be where you are at TLDR?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're spot on. I feel like every person I've spoken to in the industry has a different pathway into getting into research, and it's so rarely just, being in market research their whole career trajectory. So my background, I studied economics in my undergrad, and from that, I had, gone into just various different kind of analyst roles at Fortune 50s, and I think I ultimately found my way into research as an analyst at a market research firm in Seattle. And I had learned a lot about, market research and marketing, and like you're just drinking from the fire hose when you start out in a role like that. There's just so many projects, the pace, it's fast paced. And I think I really quickly learned how much I didn't know. And it was so great to be around smart people that were, really willing to teach. And research, being in the research industry is always about, staying curious, always being open to learning what you don't know. And so eventually I realized that, I did want to further, spend more time in a traditional education. And so went back to get my MBA at the Norwegian School of Economics, and got to really spend more time studying marketing and business more formally. And so from there, I had wanted to work in a marketing function at a large corporation, and see how that went. And I found out there that my favorite part of the job was still in the research and the customer insights. And so eventually I made the move to join some of my past colleagues who had formed TLDR Insights, and sort of the rest is history. So, I certainly had my own winding path, but I think, yeah, it was fun, and at each stage, it's just always about learning. Even if you're not in the research process itself, you just have to come back to sort of that love of learning.
Yeah, like I totally agree with that. Like once you get the taste of research, it's hard to leave. Like because I feel like you're learning every day, and that's what when people ask like what I love about my job, it's like I learn something new every day, and I get to solve problems, and I get to like explore, and I think that is really addicting and really fun. And so thank you for sharing that. And do you feel that your path, and I feel like I know the answer to this, but do you feel like your path is the only path, or do you feel like there is other paths to insights?
Oh, not at all. There, like I said, every person has their own path. And you know, folks that I work with, some have backgrounds in like public health, or model, like, financial modeling. And there's so many different skills that you can use to become a researcher, and there's so many different flavors of research out there. And so being able to adapt your skills and apply them to in the research process is really what you need to do. And there's many paths you can take.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just one more question on what you just said. You mentioned your MBA. Do you mind sharing what is like one thing that you learned from your MBA that was helpful in your current role today?
Yeah, of course. So I went to school outside of the US. And so I think one of the things that was most helpful was the fact that it was the first time where, I really felt like my American perspective was a minority in the classroom. And it gave me that context to remember that, while we might operate, and the company, our clients, and operate under these ways of doing business, these ways of communicating, these ways of even thinking about customers' needs. It really gave me that perspective and sort of awareness in my face of, and not everyone thinks the way that I do, or thinks the way that I was trained, or in school, or the way that I studied. And it was such a refreshing experience to be really surrounded by folks with different preferences and social norms and cultural norms, and just put in my face how everyone's like consumer behavior is just so unique to different areas of the world. And there's no one way of marketing to folks, and there's just like there's no one way of creating a product for folks. And so I think doing an MBA in that international setting really allowed me to remember that, each time when you answer a question, you need to really be thinking about the global context of this decision as well for these companies that, have an audience outside of the US.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Because I think I have a similar sentiment around that, where I never did a study abroad. I never did, studied outside the United States. And I think that was something that I missed. Like, that was one of the things that I wish I would have done in my undergrad or graduate degree, is have some sort of global perspective. And I've worked for, 3 different like Fortune 500 companies, and the first 2 were primarily US only. And so coming to my current role, where I think about the global marketplace, I think that's a huge gap for insights professionals, that they don't understand the global perspective. And that's also like a really great opportunity, where like if you have an opportunity to, study abroad, or have an opportunity to, learn about other cultures, I think that's just only going to help you improve your, I would say, like, insight gathering and really
Yeah.
empathizing with other target audiences.
It's never too late to go live abroad, Nikki.
Oh, I always talk about it with my husband. I'm like, let's go. um, other thing I want to talk to you about is, what advice would you give for an individual who's looking into getting into the market research industry? There's a lot of things you could share, but just wondering if there is some piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's looking into getting into insights.
Yeah, I would say that, some of the skills that I find myself leaning on so frequently are just really the foundations. It's nothing groundbreaking, but like being able to write well, craft a narrative, being able to go through data and figure out what's important, what is the most important thing I can say, and how do I say that concisely, and in a way that looks good and is visually attractive, so that people want to read it or want to consume the data. It's coming back to those foundations of just being able to deliver a point and deliver it well. I think there's a lot to be said that just being able to do data analysis, excuse me, just being able to do analytics is certainly important, but being able to share that in a compelling way and share the story is certainly what I find most rewarding, and also the most challenging, and spend the most time on. So from a course perspective, or from professional learning, like you can focus in marketing or psychology or user experience, but also making sure you have those foundations with statistics or economics, being able to understand like basic programming logic, things like that. Those are also really important skills to be able to write a survey, write a questionnaire, and deliver the still find what you're looking for with your audience. So
Yeah, we were talking earlier about everyone has different backgrounds in the insights world, and I know some people that came from journalism, some people that came from like statistics, like they come from like very different like backgrounds, like one that is very much like writing and learning, and one that is very much maybe more like analytical. And I think it's this industry is just really open to everybody. Um, from my experience, like I remember in college, I took all these statistics classes. I was a business major, and I was going to minor in sociology. And so I was taking like business stats and then social science stats. And I just remember hating it. Like, I remember being like, I don't want to take this class. I'm never going to use this. And like, funny enough, like, we need to know statistics for our role.
yeah,
And even just like the fundamental, like, I don't, on my day-to-day life, like, I am not um, running statistics. However, I need to understand proportions. I need to understand, confidence levels, things like that. Like, it's more of the theory of the principles. And then in different roles, you need to have more analytical skills, and it just depends. So interesting that you brought that up as well, because I've also found that like understanding or really having the skill set to tell a story, I think is a key like foundation for somebody trying to get into insights.
yeah. because there's only so like there's more and more types of data coming at us, and being able to understand those, use the right pieces of data, understand the context around them. Like even though I specialize and I'm more spending my days moderating interviews, like I still have to be able to understand, when there's a quantitative study that this is going to be paired with, you still have to be able to understand that. And so having those generalized skills is just as important as specializing in one area. So
Yeah, I imagine where I don't know if you've had a client come to you and say, "Oh, I need this qualitative study to give us this level of confidence." Like I've heard, I've been a part of some of those conversations, and then I'm sure as a moderator, you've had to say, "Well, this is what moderating does. This is what qualitative research does, and
yeah,
this is what quantitative can do." So, like you said, like some of those just like foundational skills are just
yeah.
help you in some of that like relationship building.
You have to be able to know, what you can't deliver
Yeah.
with your conversations. And yeah, a statistically significant result is pretty difficult to deliver. It would take a lot of interviews.
Yeah, yeah, a lot. So do you mind sharing a little bit about what are the types of roles you've seen or you've experienced on the vendor or agency side?
Yeah, of course. So agencies and vendors, they really vary by design. And so, here at TLDR, we have a generalist model where, as I mentioned, we're only seven of us. And so we are doing the research from start to end. But larger firms and different firms may take different approaches where they sort of specialize further. And so I'll just kind of walk through some of the different roles, but at a larger and kind of share different levels as well. At a larger agency, there's often a lot of research analysts and sometimes research interns as well. And so these tend to be some of the entry level roles, although you can have very experienced research analysts as well, who sort of are highly specialized in certain areas. But these types of roles, you're primarily focused on data analysis, working on reports, sharing results, confirming the quality of the data, and doing a lot of assisting tasks with sort of the design and collection of data, whether that's, programming a survey or observing focus groups and things like that. They are largely managed by project managers who, as you know and have experienced, keeping research projects on schedule is a task in itself when there's lots of questions and stakeholders to be managed. So project managers are often sort of overseeing multiple research studies at a single time, working through communications and needs from their clients, and really overseeing and moving those different data collection tasks forward. And they also manage sort of specialized roles as well. So at some firms, they have, folks that just focus in moderation. That's all they do is spend their time moderating. Or perhaps there's statisticians who really just do those advanced analytical modeling tasks and really focus in on just those statistical tasks. Some agencies have designers that work on, building beautiful reports, making things look good and beautiful for their clients in the slideware. And there's folks that manage field work exclusively, just focus on recruiting and making sure the right sample is designed and coming into the studies at the pace that we need to stay on schedule. Um, there's often, at the director level at these firms, they are really focused on leading teams of project managers and analysts. So they're overseeing and really focused in that research design at the early proposal stage and applying the right methods to answer the research questions. So there's all these different roles, and I think it's each firm has their own way of sort of bringing these together and sort of delivering results. And depending on the needs of your project and your industry, there's different firms that focus some in some industries more than others, and so I think, but generally these roles are the ones that exist at various agencies.
Yeah, and just to make sure I'm understanding, so if let's say I am a senior in college and I am applying to different roles, from what you shared, there seems to be opportunities for somebody to maybe get a research analyst role that's maybe a little bit more qualitative, or a research analyst role that's a little bit more quantitative.
Yeah.
And then maybe also they can work on maybe the operations side or some other roles as well. Do you think that's
Yeah.
fair to say?
Yeah, I would say in my experience, uh, they often encourage us not to sort of focus only in one area of
Mhm.
qualitative or quantitative research, just because of what we talked about earlier. Like
Yeah.
having the understanding across quant and qual is really important. And so oftentimes, even if it's uncomfortable and you're like, hey, I was a psychology major, why am I programming this survey? It can be really great experience to be pushed out of your comfort zone and to focus on something you don't know, because that's so much of what the research industry is.
Mhm.
So but yes, research analyst roles, you learn so much in them, and they're often structured in a way to give you sort of experience across a lot of different topics, audiences, methods to sort of build that understanding, so that as you sort of progress in your career, you have the ability to know when to apply the right
Mhm.
techniques and things like that.
Yeah, and I think one thing I guess I'll share is I've talked to hiring managers sometimes on the client side, and they'll look at resumes and they'll say, well, they don't have quantitative experience. So even though like it may be uncomfortable, um, it may be something that you didn't study in school, or it may be something that you're maybe not as interested in, just understanding it and trying to gain some of that quantitative experience. If you're looking for the clients, I know that's not for everybody. Some people just really want to do qualitative and they can find their home purely doing qualitative research. But if they're looking for more of a generalist role for their future career, like you said, like really recommend having a mixed method background.
Yeah, absolutely. Mixed methods is like the gold standard of, you need both types of data to often bring home a point and really understand what's going on.
Yeah. And one of the things I've been asked a few times is, what are those like skills or experiences that you can either put on a resume or that are important to gain if you're trying to get an entry level role at a marketing research agency?
Yeah, of course. I think it comes back to some of the things I said, but being able to analyze data, look for trends, and this can be data of a variety of different types. It doesn't have to be a marketing question. It can be in your senior thesis and sustainability. It can be in a lot of different topics, but being able to work with data and different types of data, whether that be like quantitative data or qualitative data, but being able to distill that into a story and a thesis of what's important, what should be done, what actions need to be taken. Um, Data visualization is also really important. Being able to create a visual story that again delivers a point that is helpful and impactful. Oftentimes, a lot of research agencies will even include this as part of the interview process. They'll have a bit of a. I know I had one when I first interviewed for a research analyst role. They have a sort of homework, if you will, assignment that you have to bring to the interview and sort of share your thoughts and approach to how you analyze the data and what you found. So those are really important skills, and I think ones you can sort of gather in an interdisciplinary way. It doesn't have to be in a market research course in college. It can be from a variety of different backgrounds.
Yeah, because I've shared this with some folks that if you can't get maybe a role or internship in data, maybe try to get something in an industry that you're interested in. So, for example, if you're interested in the beauty and fashion industry, like maybe trying to become a specialist in that industry and then trying to find like side projects or find things in there to make it like a data role, or find a way to like bring your interest in data and interest in understanding human behavior into your role, and finding ways to kind of talk about that in your resume. Because I know
Yeah.
it's hard. Like I know in college, like I had a marketing internship that wasn't, I mean, it was more SEO, PPC, and it was not anything to do with market research. And I was like, how do I translate this into a research role?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think other ideas that has really inspired me is from working with designers, there's this expectation that you have a portfolio website in the design world. And it was something I never considered doing for myself in the research world, but I've seen others use that and use, work with small businesses or nonprofits, or even just, it's like interest groups, like at school, like a club or something like that, and use opportunities to like apply the research process to, either missions that you care about, or people that you care about, and just documenting what you did, what you learned. That's really compelling as well, of just showing how you've employed the research process, and what kind of results you've discovered, and taken the initiative to do so, and sort of what that's given to your community, I think is also really a compelling way to build your experience.
Yeah, I think a portfolio is such a great way. Like, and this is where it's like new to me, because I never did that. But I think it's such a smart way to be able to show like your capabilities of synthesizing data and telling a story and being able to like proof. Like for me, I was never a good test taker in school, but I could do the work. I'm like, I'm a hard worker, I can do it. And so for me, I think that if I had to go back and do it, that's probably something I would do. It's really good advice. Thank you.
And then I think the only other thing I'd add, and I'd be remiss to not add this, is the research world is changing so much with AI now giving us a lot of different tools in our tool set, and it's changing at such a rapid pace. And so being willing to experiment with new tools and show your ability to learn new tools, it can be difficult sometimes, but how you can employ generative AI tools, or different, there's so many opportunities. So being able to sort of be excited by that, as opposed to, running away from it, is also important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the growth mindset, I think is, again, in research, we're learning every day. We're trying to learn and understand insights. And so I think like I've had people reach out and they've been like, oh, I'm looking at this article, or I'm looking at this technology. And I'm like, this is great. So just having the interest of learning about, key research methods or key things in AI or trends in the industry that you're interested in getting to, I think is so important. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to share? Any other words of wisdom that you would like to pass on?
I think
It's been
I
great.
think we've covered it all. But thank you so much for having me, and yeah, it's been delightful to share my story, and I'm excited to see what this next generation can bring to the research industry.
Absolutely. I've been inspired. There's been some amazing people I've talked to, so really excited to see what's to come.